Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. Folks, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 49. The title of today's episode is Stay in Your Lane. Now, before we get into the meat of the episode, I want to encourage you to go and check out my favorite 501c3 organization. That is, of course, the Overwatch Collective. The Overwatch Collective is a nonprofit and podcast that is funding therapy sessions and supporting mental health initiatives for our first responders, our veterans, and their families. Their motto is, one more is one less, and I take that to heart. One more individual that we can provide services to is one less statistic, so please go check out the overwatchcollective.com. While you're there, make a donation, buy some gear to support their cause, or purchase a ticket to their annual fundraiser, which is coming up on August 24th, 2024 in San Mateo, California. That's the Bay Area. If you happen to be up there, go check out that annual fundraiser. Greg and his people over at the Overwatch Collective are doing great things for the law enforcement veteran community. Please, please, please support their efforts so that they can continue to support your colleagues, yourself, and others in our community who desperately need their help. Folks, today, as I said, we're talking about staying in your lane. Now, I feel like I've used this title on a prior podcast, but we're not going to worry about that. We're going to just be talking about this from the context of Epictetus. So let me start you out with a quote from Epictetus. Man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them. Now, Epictetus, as we've talked about before, was a slave turned philosopher. And so when he talks about man's disturbed by things, not by things, but by the views he takes of them, he's speaking from a deeply personal place related to how he was treated, how he found himself from a young age brought into slavery, enslaved by a sometimes cruel master in ancient Rome, eventually freed, eventually able to pursue his true purpose in life of teaching others Stoic resilience. And so I love this quote, man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them. Let's dig in a little bit. Now, why did I call this Stay in Your Lane? Because I've been watching the Olympics. It's been track and field for the last week. And of course, everybody's lined up in lanes and there's lane violations and there's ways that you can get, DQ'd, disqualified. You can't run if you get out of your lane. So I thought it was a good way to kind of introduce this topic. How many of us have had the desire to do something audacious, to change our lives, to go be an Olympic athlete, right? But we convinced ourselves to quit out of fear of being judged. I can speak to this. I was not a terribly great athlete, but I can recall being a kid, and there were tryouts for the Olympic luge team in the town I grew up in Portland, Maine, and I really wanted to go and try out. It seemed like super fun. You just sled really, really fast. If you grew up in New England, you do a lot of sledding. You get comfortable going down a frozen hill at a high rate of speed. So it seemed like the best possible thing that I could involve myself in as a young kid, as a 10, 11, 12-year-old kid, was to try to get onto the Olympic development program for luge and bobsled. It was kind of silly. It didn't end up panning out. I didn't end up going to the tryouts, trying out for the team or anything else. But a lot of that was due to a fear of being judged, a fear of, what might happen, a fear of not being good enough, a fear of being told no. And that happens to us a lot in our lives, right? The new career path, the weight loss journey, the new hobby. Oftentimes we psych ourselves out. We will abandon it all at the first hint of imagined whispers from our friends or disapproval from our friends, our family, or colleagues. If you happen to be in law enforcement, you happen to be a veteran, there is a huge tendency in those communities to attack anyone who tries to get out of their lane, to attack anyone who tries to climb out of the bucket, because we are all sold this idea and this attitude that this is the greatest thing you will ever do. Your 4-year enlistment in the Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force is the greatest thing you will ever do. Your or your full-time career, or 20-year career in the military, your 20-year career in law enforcement is the greatest thing you will ever do. Nothing will ever replace this. And so when people leave early like I did, or they create a new life for themselves in entrepreneurship, or chasing a different dream, it tends to offend people who have bought into that idea that this is the greatest thing you can ever do. And a lot of people I see who leave law enforcement, who leave the military, struggle to evolve and move on from that because they are so concerned and worried about the disapproval from their former colleagues, their former friends in the service that they were in. They're worried about the whispers. They're worried about the chipping at them. And I'll tell you, and I see this all the time. I'm not a veteran myself, but I see it all the time in the communities that I operate in and I work within online. There are a lot of veterans who are doing great things in their post-military career, and the most savage critics of those people who are coaching, who are teaching, who are sharing lessons like this are the people who are in that veteran community with them, or in my case, the people who are in that law enforcement community with me. The most savage critics you're going to find are those who are watching you move up and do new things, that new career path, that new journey. The most savage critics you are going to find when you start your weight loss journey, when you start running, when you start going out there and trying something new, are the people who are jealous of your commitment. They're the people you are leaving behind as you chart this new course. They're going to be the most savage critics of it. And so oftentimes we quit when we get that sense of disapproval from people that we have tied our reputations to. But why? It's because we allow our views of the things to disturb us, not the thing itself, our views of them. When we find ourselves caught in the grip of those kinds of negative emotions, believing that the world is judging us, that's when we need to stop and remind ourselves that the judgment we fear actually resides between our own ears. You see, it doesn't matter if somebody else doesn't believe in you or doesn't think that what you're doing is valuable or wants to chirp from the cheap seats about your new path, your new journey, the thing that you are embracing and going off on. Those external factors, those snide remarks and comments, they cannot cause us turmoil and distress unless we allow them to. And that is what happens when we allow our fear, our opinion of those comments, of those external factors, to stand in the way of our hopes and dreams. We can decide to disregard that fear of being judged. We can choose to disregard that literally any time we choose. So from now on, when we fear judgment from external sources, we need to ask ourselves, we need to stop and recognize, why do I care what some guy I went to college with thinks about me? Why do I care what some kid I grew up with thinks about me? Why do I care what my former colleagues in law enforcement or the military think about this path that I'm on now? We need to stop it in its tracks. We need to ask ourselves, how can I reframe this situation in a way that empowers me rather than disempowers me? You see, by prioritizing self-awareness and personal accountability, we can free ourselves from the grip of external circumstances, and we can reclaim agency over our lives. No one else is paying your bills. Nobody else is going to help you on this journey. Why are you giving them power over whether or not you pursue it? When we reclaim that agency over our lives, we maximize our effectiveness, we maximize our productivity, we maximize our success by focusing time and energy on areas where we have the most direct impact or influence. Instead of worrying about trying to control the opinion of others, about trying to control the world around you, about trying to make everyone happy, about trying to people please, focus instead on mastering your own mind and your own attitude, and focusing on the thing that you want to do, the thing that is important to you, knowing where you are going, knowing what you want from yourself. We talked about that earlier this week. We talked about the importance of action over words. We talked about focusing on what matters to you and recognizing what matters to you. We talked about not allowing triggers to cause anger, to allow you to get off track. And today we were talking about staying in your lane. Just like those Olympic sprinters who are looking dead ahead, they're not concerned with what's going on around them. They're just trying to get to the finish line as quickly as possible. They only do that by staying in their lane with their eyes firmly focused on the finish line. And that's what you need to do. That's exactly what you need to do. So ask yourselves this. Here's your journal prompt of the day. Ask yourself, am I truly disturbed by the judgment of others, or is it my own reaction to what I perceive to be judgment that disturbs me? Am I actually disturbed by the snide comments or the cheeky remarks or the people thinking that I'm gonna fail? Or am I disturbed by my own reaction to that? Am I disturbed by what's going on between my 2 ears? And if that's the case, if you're truly disturbed by your reaction to that, you can disregard that at any time. You can be like those sprinters. You can put those blinders on and focus firmly on the course ahead of you and get there as quickly as you can. And you're never going to get there if you're listening to the people chirping at you from the cheap seats. So stay in your lane, folks. Thanks so much for listening this week. If you'd like to support this podcast, I sure hope that you do. There's a few ways you can do so super quick so you can get out the door and on with your weekend. Let me tell you what that is. Number one, pick up a copy of my book, In Valor, 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, anywhere else you get your books. It's available on Kindle and Nook if you choose to download it for instant download right now, or you can get the paperback edition on Amazon Prime, sent to you super quick. It's a great resource for law enforcement and first responders and anyone else who wants to practice this philosophy on a daily basis. It's going to give you quotes. It's going to give you contextualization. It's going to give you things that are directly relatable to your modern life, but from an ancient perspective. It's also going to give you more of these daily journal prompts and action items to help you really contextualize and integrate these lessons so that you can focus on staying in your lane and with your eyes on the prize. Number two, you can subscribe to the podcast via Substack. And if you do that, it's completely free. If you go over to thestoicresponder.substack.com or you just Google The Stoic Responder, you can find the Substack page. You can subscribe for free. You're going to get these podcasts delivered directly to your email so you never miss one. You're also going to get my weekly newsletters with Stoic leadership and personal development tips that you can use. If you are only listening to this on iTunes or on Spotify or on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, you're missing out on the weekly newsletters. So go on over to that Substack page and subscribe for free. You're going to get those weekly newsletters in addition to the podcast. And finally, and this is the easiest thing that you can do, and the thing that I appreciate the most, is go out there, like, share, and subscribe so that others can learn about what we're doing here and take some of this wisdom with them. If you want to gain greater resilience and you want those around you to gain greater resilience, please like, share, and subscribe this podcast so that we can keep these lessons rolling. Folks, get out there, enjoy your weekends, live your lives with valor, and until next week, you are out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.